Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! 101, the absolute beginning steps for you to take into your path in starting Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a video for literally people that have never heard of the game. If you played Yu-Gi-Oh! This video probably won't help you. Maybe redefine some things you know, but it's not going to teach you anything new. This is literally for people that do not know anything. This is going to start my long series of Yugioh whatever series where I teach every single element of Yu-Gi-Oh. Let's start. The first thing you truly need to know are the three different types of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh. There are three different types. There's monster, spell, and trap. They're very important and they work in very different ways. These spells can come in 6 different forms. There are normal spells, field spells, equip spells, continuous spells, quick play spells, and ritual spells. You can tell the difference between all of them because all 6 of them have a different symbol, or normal spells doesn't have a symbol. That's how you know. And then trap cards, they come in 3 different types. There's normal traps, counter traps, and continuous traps. And a continuous trap has the same symbol as a continuous spell. A counter trap symbol looks like that. Monster cards have a little more things going on than spells and traps. They have attributes, types, levels, attack and defense points, and a text box that has an effect or no effect at all. Spells and traps also affect in that effect box, but they don't also have everything else going on with it. Monsters, are 8 different types of monsters in this game. There's normal monsters, effect monsters, ritual monsters, fusion monsters, synchro monsters, XYZ monsters, pendulum monsters, and link monsters. They come in 7 different attributes: light, water, dark, fire, wind, earth, and divine. I do not know the exact number of types, but they come in dragon, fiend, zombie, pyro, rock, fish, sea serpent, machine, dinosaur, insect, beast, beast warrior, plant, aqua, warrior, winged beast, fairy, spellcaster, thunder, reptile, psychic, worm, cybers, and divine beast. Now that you've identified with the cards of Yu-Gi-Oh, you gotta identify with where you're gonna place those cards down. It is a 2x7 field where you'd be placing these cards down, which have different properties depending on which space exists on the field. First, let's start with the 5 middle rows. The 5 middle spots on the top column is the monster zone, where you can place monsters from the field, graveyard, and whatever. That's where they go. That's where you have to place them. And they can go in other places, but 95 to 99% of the time, they'll be in these 5 zones. You may be asking, what are the 2 zones on top of those 5 zones right there? And those are the extra deck monster zones, where you have the option to summon any of your monsters from the extra deck into that zone. Main deck monsters cannot go in this zone. Also, extra deck monsters that are summoned not from the extra deck cannot go in this zone. So if you summon a monster from the graveyard to the field, that's summoned from the extra deck, that was summoned from the extra deck, you cannot put it in the extra deck monster zones. And then underneath these 5 zones are the spell and trap zones, where you can place the cards I've said earlier that are green and purple, and you place them in these zones. One thing to note that I did not say earlier is that trap cards, you set them on the field and have to wait until the next turn to activate, unless specified otherwise. There are a lot of situations in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you can activate a trap card outside of those conditions, but for 90% of the time, you set this card in the field, and the next turn, you activate. And then there is the top left zone and the first row is the field spell zone, where the cards that have that symbol, the field spell symbol, have to be placed here. On the other side of the board It is the graveyard. The graveyard is where you send all of the monsters that get destroyed from the field, or maybe get sent from deck by a card effect, but most of the time it gets sent from field or hand to grave, and that's where they go. There's also an imaginary zone that's not technically part of the field. It is the banish zone, where it's like the graveyard, but more permanent. So there's less of a chance of that monster coming back to the field. And underneath the graveyard is your deck. Your deck may consist of 40 cards to 60 cards. No more than 60, no less than 40. That's what you have to do to qualify to play a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And on the other side is your extra deck. Your extra deck used to be able to contain as many monsters as you want when it used to be called the fusion deck, but it's the extra deck now, and it contains, you can put 0, you can put nothing, you don't have to put anything in your extra deck, or you could put up to 15 cards, which is most likely recommended for most Yu-Gi-Oh players. The next thing that's fundamental about Yu-Gi-Oh are the phases of Yu-Gi-Oh. There's the draw phase, where you draw one from your deck normally when it's your turn for the draw phase. The standby phase, where effects that trigger happen. It's basically something that happens before the main phase, where you mainly do every single thing that you would normally do. It's the phase that you're supposed to be doing your stuff. And then there's the battle phase, where you use your monsters that you put on the field and you can attack your opponent. And then there's the main phase too, in case your battle wasn't successful, or your battle was successful but you wanted to put a defensive position. You can do it in your main phase too. And then there's the end phase, where sometimes there's effects that happen during the end phase, but it's the end of your turn right before it goes to your opponent's draw phase. Another core mechanic of Yu-Gi-Oh is summoning. There is 3 types of summons. There are a normal summon, a flip summon, and then a special summon. A normal summon can just be a level 4 or normal monster can be normal summoned to the field regularly, unless it specifies otherwise. And then a level 5 or 6 monster needs 1 monster on the field already to tribute for it to be on the field. And then for a level 7 or higher monster, you need 2 tributes to put that monster on the field. And then a flip summon is when a monster is already face down and you flip it face up, and that's just a flip summon. It's pretty basic. And then a special summon is literally you get to summon that monster to the field. There's literally no restrictions on special summon. You get to do it as many times as you desire. And that's kind of the problem in this game. But it can be fun if it's done right. I think the last basic thing you really need to know is, how do you win? How do you win at Yu-Gi-Oh? I told you how to play or know the basic information of Yu-Gi-Oh, but how do you win? The first way is the most basic way. You and your opponent have 8,000 life points, and you are trying to beat them up with your powerful monsters and lower them by attacking the difference between their attack points, and you'll take that damage as life points. Or if you have no monsters on the field and they attack you directly, you take their attack directly minus your life points. The second way to win in Yu-Gi-Oh is burning your opponent to death, which means you use card effects that do effect damage that take chunks of your opponent's life points away. Most of the time it's not effective to do this, but there's people that are able to burn your 8,000 life points in one go. The third way is decking out your opponent, or your opponent cannot draw. If your opponent has 0 cards in their deck zone and they have to draw for any reason, they lose automatically. The game's over. They're like, if they have 0 cards and they're about to attack, and you yourself make your opponent draw for 3 cards, or 2 cards or 1, they will lose before that attack even will go through. And the last way is alternate win conditions, which Yu-Gi-Oh has made over the years, where they just say, if you can do this card effect, you win. You did it. The first one they ever made was Exodia, and then it was Spirit Board, and they've made a couple later on down the way. There's others, but I really like the two original, that is Exodia and Spirit Board. But there's a lot of others that I would love to figure out how to do. Like Jackpot 7. Jackpot 7 is a classic alternate win condition that is very, very hard to do, and I'll cover on probably later on. And that should be everything you need to know for Yu-Gi-Oh! 101. I will go in deeper thought on all of these topics that I just went over. I will put up the plan on the order of these videos probably at this moment. There's probably 7 that are basic, just like 100, the quote-unquote Yu-Gi-Oh! 100 classes that I will be making videos in the future of. So anything that you would kind of be like, what's a little more you could go on, there will be more. It's just kind of a step by step. You can ease in or you could jump right in. I will look forward to see you in the next one. Comment down if this video has helped you in any way, anything that I could have explained better, or if you're happy to see my content in the future. I would love to hear your opinion, and that's all I got.